Susan, you're muted.
Thank you.
Hi, y'all.
Hi, all. Hi, Tassie.
Hello,
Oh,
it's good to see you.
Christina.
Long time no see.
I know. Miss those Sunday afternoon chats.
They're still going on.
Good. Lucy Christina was a candidate. She wasn't successful for the first time, but she's ready to do it again.
Lucy,
Hi.
how do you like Florida? Are you enjoying it?
I am loving it. I just bought myself a kayak and a paddle board, and I'm really leaning into that Florida lifestyle.
That a girl.
Oh, well, you're talking to the right person because Lori is an avid outdoors woman.
Yeah,
Good, you can give me tips on where to go.
absolutely. Well, you live in a different part, but we've got only 4 kayaks. So come on over here and I'll show you the ways around, okay?
Deal, 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 deal.
Good.
It is so nice to see everybody's face. I learned in one of those, how to Zoom better programs that you should always have your camera on because with communication, 80 to 90% of communication is visual and only about 10% is actual audio. And when you turn your camera off, Amy and Todd and Edna, I'm calling you out. You don't, it's not the same communication experience. So it's really nice to see everyone.
Everybody
new
have
faces.
have their wine? Are we gonna do this with wine tonight or not?
I don't trust myself. I have water. But I'll get that vodka going later.
with
3 olives, please.
our legislature, we need the vodka now.
Oh my God. Is this the worst session ever?
It just gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
Lynn.
Hi, Lynn and Tracy and Lee. Oh my goodness. And new faces.
Hello, everybody. I'm not really sure what I'm doing, so I want to know what the conversation is. I'm not sure.
Cecily, it's so nice to have you with us. We're just sort of hanging out till we start at 6. We're kind of casual, so it's really nice to just see faces. I met Cecily on a Zoom call where she was the moderator on a social justice conversation with Chris King and Cecile Schoon, if I recall, right?
Right.
This is just our time for everybody to kind of check in and say hello and make sure their mics work and all that jazz. So glad you're here.
And Elizabeth is here and my commissioner is here, Commissioner Bonilla. Lucy, she's a ruthless candidate. Oh, re-elected.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And hi, everyone. Thanks for the invite. Glad to be here. That's Elizabeth. Hi.
Hi, Elizabeth. We're so glad you're here too.
Hi, this is Commissioner Emily Bonilla. I'm so happy to be here as well. Just want to say hi.
Wonderful.
Hi, Commissioner.
Emily.
Yes, we tried to accommodate schedules. Elizabeth has a board meeting on certain Tuesdays and you have a commission meeting. So I really tried. I mean, we still got Women's History Month at the very end, but we got you both tonight. So I'm happy you're here. Thank you. Where'd Tassie go?
I'm right here. Hey there. Can you see me, Susan?
No.
I may be on a different page.
Oh, there you are.
You
I
went
see you
to the
now.
gallery.
Hello there.
Everybody should turn on their chat because we'll probably be putting in some information and some links as we go along in the chat area.
This is we start
Is
serving
is
them
it
all.
kosher if I give a plug for something for Planned Parenthood? Can I do that?
Yeah, of course. You're amongst friends.
Okay, so Planned Parenthood, Southwest Central Florida has their big spring event, April 8th. It is virtual. Suzanne, if you want to put the link in the chat, you can still get a ticket. It's going to be a pretty cool event. And since they are our key partner, they get special privileges. So shout out to Suzanne Nixon and Planned Parenthood. Somebody needs to mute.
Todd, we love having a man.
Where'd he go? Yes.
He just left.
So what is the right way for Winter Park? Is it a city commissioner or council person? What is
He's a city commissioner.
Commissioner. We're happy to have
He's a
you, Todd.
longtime supporter of Ruth's list.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and you can just call me Todd.
Good. Okay, a few more minutes.
Is Deidre coming?
Deidre is moderating a political discussion sponsored by the Seminole County League of Women Voters this evening with Anna Escamani and Lynn. It's one of the commissioners, Adrian Hare. How do you say? I don't know how to say her name.
Yeah, it's Andrea Her.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, Deidre, for those of you who don't know, Deidre McNabb, she and Pat Schroeder were the co-founders of Ruth's List Central Florida. And then Lori Walk and I became involved actively. And then Susan Windmiller is now our fearless leader. But I always love it to do a shout out to Deidre for forming this group in the first place. She's done a great job of getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
And Lucy's on here, I think, somewhere. Where's Lucy?
I'm here.
There she is. Lucy, this is especially fun to tell you kind of the background of, does everybody know? I'm jumping ahead, Susan. I'm sorry. I'm a firstborn.
That's okay.
Do that.
Tassi's going to start. So you're taking Tassi's thunder, but that's quite all right.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
Jennifer, please go ahead and tell us all about how wonderful Lucy is, because I know
Yes.
she has a great background, and we're super excited to have her in Florida. So
well, maybe I should wait till everybody's on the call because her background is fabulous and we are extremely lucky to have her. So, Tassi, I am not going to step on your toes. Even though my firstborn instinct, sometimes I do that. My husband can tell you that.
it's all right. I'm the youngest of 5, so it works out well.
You listen. You're a listener.
Wow.
So where are you, Lucy, in the birth order?
What do you mean?
Are you the first sibling or the second sibling?
Oh, I'm the first sibling. I have a younger brother. He actually just visited me this weekend. I haven't seen him since the summer. He got fully vaccinated and immediately got on a plane from Brooklyn to come down to my.
Oh.
Turns out when you move to Florida, all of a sudden your family wants to visit you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Hard to get them out.
Let's
to
hear
Denver,
it for fully vaccinated too. Hooray.
So I'm the eldest.
Well, a lot of leaders are the eldest, but there are a lot of leaders, great leaders that are not the eldest. So. But the stereotype is that the oldest child has a tendency to kind of start those leadership skills when they start bossing their siblings around.
My parents could attest to that.
I will say that I'm the eldest, so I've got a lot of practice. And even though my sisters are now 30 and 40 years old, they're still calling me a bossy little babe, but not as nice as that.
Full books. I just saw Bruce Blackwell. He's our other wonderful male board member. And he sends his regrets. He has a conflict with another meeting that he's on, but he said hello to everybody. Was especially sad that he's missing Linda Chapin and Pat Schroeder. And I think Susan's on the line getting some stuff nailed down.
I think she's calling Pat just to make sure she's able to log on.
Yeah.
Jennifer, congratulations, by the way. I haven't seen you in person.
Thank you. My husband was just elected mayor of Winter Park. So it was very exciting. It was a very, very tough race. And
Yay.
but the residents, his whole platform was listening to the residents rather than special interests. And the residents voted him in big numbers, so it was great. We had tough competition, tough opponent. Okay. So he joins Todd on the dais at Winter Park.
Pat, I think Pat just joined.
Good.
Yep.
And also, Jennifer worked so hard. When you're getting calls from people at 10 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock in the morning, you know they're just working their tail feathers off. So it was well earned. Congrats, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there she
There
is.
she is.
Here now.
Congresswoman.
How are you?
Hello.
My inspiration.
Oh, yeah, right.
You were.
All of ours, I think.
All of us.
Oh, that's great. Well, we've just got to keep going.
Yeah, especially now, right?
You know, I keep hearing things that really puzzle me. I heard that 72,000 people in this state voted but didn't put anyone's name in for president.
Wow.
And another 14,000 wrote in Mickey Mouse or something like that. I mean, why would you go to all that trouble to show up and vote to do that?
I also saw today that 31 of those arrested for the insurrection are from Florida.
Makes you proud, doesn't it? I'm sure there's more than that. They just haven't arrested them yet.
They're not done.
This place is filled with angry white men.
I just wonder if all those men were 31 black men, what the difference would be.
Oh, isn't that the truth? They'd be in prison forever.
All right, folks. Well, it is 6 p.m., so we can go ahead and get started because I will obviously, give folks a few minutes to hop on. But just want to say hello and good evening. And thank you for joining Ruthless of Central Florida tonight for our Women's History Month celebration. Women's History Month is one of my favorite months of the year, and I am so thrilled that we are joined by incredible panelists tonight for a great conversation about women in politics, both past and present, and of course, hoping to see great things in the future. So it's great to see so many familiar faces on here. My name is Tassie Hogan, and I am a government and public affairs consultant with the Southern Group here in Orlando. But I have previously had the privilege of working on nearly 20 campaigns in Central Florida, including the Clinton and Biden campaigns, along with the campaign of one of our panelists tonight, the lovely Amy Mercado. I will say I apologize ahead of time if I call her rep during tonight. She was a House rep for a long time, so it's just a habit. And although she is no longer a rep and is now a property appraiser, I still call her rep. She's still rep in my phone. So apologies ahead of time if you hear me say rep. Just one housekeeping item. I know we have been doing these Zoom events for a year, but if you can please keep your mics muted when you're not speaking, that would be wonderful. And also our panelists will be able to, see your screen if they're looking at it from gallery view. So don't be afraid to, clap and snap for people. Even though we can't hear you necessarily, we can definitely see you. All right, so we are coming up on the end of Women's History Month, so we are thrilled to have you here. The theme of tonight's conversation is making history as we forge new paths. And so it's just great to be here with amazing women who have helped shape the political landscape for women in politics. Before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to hand the Zoom over to the CEO of Ruthless Florida, Lucy Sedgwick. As many of you know, Lucy joined Ruthless earlier this year. She's a phenomenal woman who has dedicated her career to building movements and training the next generation of Democratic leadership. And most recently, she actually led Colorado's Abortion Access for All campaign. So we are thrilled to have her here in Florida. So please give a warm welcome to Lucy Sedgwick.
Thank you so much. And I see all the hands clapping, which is nice. I'm glad that we're able to do this where we can actually see everybody's faces. I'm just so honored to be here with you all in community tonight. I know there are quite a few people on this call that I've already had a chance to speak with, and pretty much everybody else you're on my list to call. So if I haven't called yet, I'm only 2 months into the job, and I promise I will be calling soon. I am just so grateful, first of all, to Susan for her leadership in Central Florida and so many other women who are on this call today. In particular, want to mention Jennifer Anderson for her leadership and Lori Wack as well for just everything that they have done to make Ruth's List what it is today. And, for me, Women's History Month has really given me an opportunity to reflect and remember the women leaders who have paved the way for us to be here today. And I have to, at this moment, just acknowledge Congresswoman Schroeder for the trails that you have blazed, not only here in Florida, but also in Colorado. I very much feel like you are a sister in arms to me as we've kind of crossed between these two states. I've also just thought a lot about where Ruth's List can go in the future. There's so much in the past for us to be proud of, but Women's History Month is always an opportunity for me to think about, well, what is the history that we want to create in the future, and what are we fighting for? And, for me, when I stepped into this role, I really imagine a government that reflects the people that it serves and decision makers who genuinely and enthusiastically fight for better lives for Floridians that they represent, regardless of their political affiliation, orientation, skin color, everything. And that's part of what drew me to Ruth's List, because we know that women are underrepresented in our government and are also better poised to serve as true representatives. And so, I imagine a Florida where Democratic pro-choice women not only serve in all levels of government, but are also actually the majority of elected officials in our key legislative bodies. And I know it's going to take us a while to get there, but I think in these moments that we have to look back on what we've achieved in the past, it's important to also think about what are we fighting for the future. And, I'm honored to step into this organization that already has so much to be proud of. And a lot of that is thanks to women who are on this call today. But, Ruth's List has been an integral part of creating history here in Florida for women. We are changing the landscape every year by electing women up and down the ballot and building this bench of qualified women candidates who can run for higher office. And you know, when I took a moment to just think about all of the firsts that Ruth's List has been honored to be a part of, you know, one I want to just mention who's on the call tonight, Amy Mercado, you know, the first Latina to become a county-wide property appraiser in Florida. That is huge. And Amy, I'm very much looking forward to kind of learning from you this evening on this call. But there are just so many women who have broken barriers in their communities. And there's just, you know, I could take this whole hour just talking about the women that we've helped support in their paths. But at the same time, you know, we have a lot of firsts left to go. And I think that Women's History Month, again, is an opportunity not just to look back, but also to look forward. You know, we have never elected a woman governor. Only 34% of our legislature is women, and only 19% of that is Democratic women. So there are a lot of history making opportunities, if we can just put it that way, as we look to the future. And to me, it's not just about breaking glass ceilings because we can. It's about breaking glass ceilings because we know it will make Florida a better place to live. You know, research shows, and I know I was just talking with Edna earlier today over lunch, about research shows that women do govern differently than men. They're more collaborative, they're more bipartisan, which means they solve problems more quickly, more efficiently, and they're more likely to advance policies that support women and children and social welfare, the environment, the list goes on. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I think it is worth noting that women do govern differently, and that is in of itself a good reason to work in sisterhood, in partnership, to elect more women. And, you know, these history making moments, they don't just happen. It takes hard work year in, year out to build a bench of qualified women who are running and winning in their historic races. And I recognize that Ruth's List is only a small part of the overall puzzle of what we're trying to accomplish here in our state. But, you know, with that in mind, as I stepped into this role, some people said, oh, well, that's good. You have like a full 2 years before the next midterms. And I'm like, no. For an organization like Ruth's List, there is no such thing as an off year. For an organization like ours that engages with candidates in every step of the pipeline, from finding and recruiting her to run, to training and coaching her to launch her campaign, to actually providing an endorsement and meaningful volunteer capacity and fundraising support. If anything, this year is our most crucial time so that we're set up to break glass ceilings next year and to make history. And I was really reminded of that yesterday. We were doing an event with Mayor Danielle Levine Cava. And when she was asked, how did you first get involved with Ruth's List? She said, well, actually, the first time I got involved was I went to a training in Orlando years before I even was ready to run for office. I wasn't even thinking about running when I went to that training. And it was one of the things that sort of sparked for me, this is something that I might actually want to do. And now look at her. She is serving, you know, Ruth's List was proud to support her in all 3 of her campaigns. And now she's the mayor of Miami-Dade, the first woman elected to that position, and making a huge impact on millions of Floridians in her position. It's one of the most powerful positions in the state when you really think about just the budget and scope of what she controls in her position. And all that in mind, you know, I'm just thinking, well, where is the next Danielle Levine Cava, and who are the women that we need to bring up with us? And as I look to the future for Ruth's List, you know, this year we are poised to support over 15 women on the ballot. And next year, I'll be honest with you, we're looking at supporting upwards of 100 women who are likely to run from the top of the ticket all the way down. And those are races that we need to play a part in because we are building the bench for future leadership. And, you know, in my mind, this is the best problem to have. When Ruth's List first started, we were probably supporting 20 women a cycle. And there are so many more women who are now looking to themselves and thinking, actually, this is something that I could do. I could run for office and I could serve my community. And we now need to step up to the plate to support them, to blaze that trail, and to stand in community with them to allow them to be successful. So I'm just so excited to be leading the helm here at Ruth's List. And also to be working with each and every one of you, because this goes beyond just a single one of us. I often think back to, and I think some of you have heard me talk about this before, but I just keep thinking about what people have said about what Stacey Abrams was able to accomplish in Georgia. You know, they said, wow, look at everything that Stacey was able to do. We just need to find a Stacey in every single state. And if we find that woman and we support that woman, then we can flip all of these states. Like, we need to find the Stacey in Texas. We need to find the Stacey in Florida. And I think that Stacey Abrams be the first person to tell you that she did not do it alone, and that it was a community of organizers, activists, donors, politicos who all came together to flip Georgia. And when I'm on this Zoom tonight looking at all of your faces, I'm thinking we've got a lot of Stacey's in the room, and I'm very excited to see what we can all accomplish, especially as we look forward to 2022, which is going to be a real opportunity for women on the ballot here in Florida, where I think we can start to prove that women are a crucial element to flipping our state, and that we are worthy of investing in and supporting as we go out there and blaze those trails. So thank you so much, Susan, for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. And I look forward to hearing from our other speakers and engaging in conversation with all of you.
I'll unmute so you can at least hear my clap. That was wonderful. Thank you, Lucy. Always very inspirational to hear from you. Although this is actually the second time for me, but I love everything that you've done previously. And I'm just very, very excited to have you here in Florida, because everyone on this call knows we need competent leadership. And it is a fight in Florida. So thank you so much for being here with us and helping us put up the good fight. I also want to say that while you were speaking, I think I saw Alex Sink jump on, the Honorable Alex Sink. She is actually the former CFO of Florida and Ruthless founder. So I don't know, Alex, if you are in a place where you can speak and say hello. Oh, I see your smiling face, but I saw you come on, and so I just wanted to say hello. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. I just wanted to say hi to everybody. Sorry, I was a little late, and I just caught what Lucy had to say. We're just so excited about the future of Bruce List, and wow, you Central Florida supporters have been you started the whole the whole regional team. And I know Lucy told you that we just want to replicate what you've done in Central Florida all over the rest of the state. So all of you have friends in other places around the state, please recruit them and ask them to start their own Ruthless organization, whether it's in the reddest of the red places or we just haven't gotten organized yet. I was down in Southwest Florida over the weekend. There are Democrats there, believe it or not. But they think they're all alone and they're lonesome and they're lonely. But we think we can go into some of these more red areas of Florida and start picking off school nonpartisan races, like school board races. We've been really successful in some city council races. I think they elected the first Democrat over in Brevard County, a fantastic woman who got herself elected to the school board in a nonpartisan race. So that's how we're going to get started, and we're just going to build our influence everywhere. So we're excited about Lucy. As you can tell, she's a superstar. And to all of the rest of you and all of my favorite people on the Zoom there, we've got to keep fighting. I'm not giving up, and I know you're not either.
Thank you, Alex.
Alex, you know I like a good fight. I'm here for it.
We're there with you, Lucy. Just tell us what to do. Just tell us what we need to do.
I'm sure we'll get a lot of emails and calls from Lucy moving forward. She's like, I know where to find all of you. All right, so the evening is off to a great start. I do want to jump into our conversation with our amazing panelists. Unfortunately, Linda Chapin is unable to join us tonight. She had a family emergency. And so please keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers. And, you know, she obviously sends her regards and is very disappointed that she can't join us, but we all know family comes first. So please just keep her in your thoughts. If you have her number, you know, send her a nice text so she knows you're thinking of her. You know, we gotta support our women during hard times. So anyway, I'm very sad to not have Linda with us, but the good news is we still have 3 amazing panelists tonight, so we will jump right into it. So first and foremost, we are joined by the Honorable Pat Schroeder, as we all know, Colorado's first Congresswoman. Now, I could spend honestly the whole hour reading our panelists' bios because they have accomplished so much, but I just want to focus on a few key highlights just in case there are folks on this call who maybe haven't read the Congresswoman's bio or Shayla's bio or Amy's bio. So just a few key highlights, but we'll obviously hear a lot more from the Congresswoman moving forward. Upon graduation, she actually taught law courses at the University of Colorado, Denver. She represented Denver in Congress from 1973 to 1997. She worked as an attorney at the National Labor Relations Board, and if that is not enough, she also taught at Princeton in 1997. More recently, she has served on the League of Women Voters Board for about 4 years and has also served on the National Common Cause Board for 6 years. So please give a round of applause for the Congresswoman. All right, and up next, we are joined by the Honorable Amy Mercado. As you heard, Florida's first Latina property appraiser. A few highlights: Amy was raised in the Bronx, but has actually called Orange County home since 1996. For 4 years, she represented the people of House District 48 in the Florida legislature, where she also served as the ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, which we all know is a huge deal. And she also most recently served as the Director of Operations for the U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Mango Board. So please welcome Amy. Give her a round of applause. All right, and last but not least, the lovely Shayla Asensios, who is the District Director for Congressman Darren Soto and also my former colleague on the Biden campaign. Now, something about Shayla, she has never held public office. However, she has worked in the political space for her entire career. So she brings a very unique perspective to this conversation, having that political background, that political acumen, and also being a minority in Florida politics. Before joining the Congressman's office, she served in a political capacity with the SEIU Union, Gillum King for Governor, For Our Future, and the Florida Democratic Party. And as I mentioned previously, she served as on the Biden campaign as the statewide coalition's co-director, which was no easy feat. And she has also been recognized by the Orlando Business Journal as a woman who means business. So please give a warm welcome to Shayla. All right, so we are going to jump into it. Really just want this to be conversational. Don't want it to be too structured or formal, but we do have a few really great questions lined up. Thank you to everyone on the board who sent their questions. I try to incorporate as many as possible. However, we'll see how many of those we get to given our, that we need to be done at 7. So as we heard Lucy say, many of us believe that electing women is the path to a better future for all Floridians. First of all, we outnumber men, but more importantly, I think we all agree that we approach politics in a more rational, pragmatic, and effective way as well. And in Central Florida, we've had great success in electing women. If you think back, you can think to Linda Chapin, Glenda Hood, Alex Zink, Betty Castor, and now we look at our Orange County Commission and our school board, which are all women, which is amazing. So jumping into this conversation for tonight, for our panelists, to what do you attribute this success, and how do you think we sustain the success moving forward? And I will just open it to the three of you. Go ahead and chime in. Otherwise, I can pick on folks one by one.
I can start if you like.
Great.
I think one thing, like Tasi mentioned, I have worked in Democratic politics for years now, and I've worked with a lot of the elected officials now on this call, which is an honor to be a part of it. But I would like to answer that question first, because I've gotten the unique opportunity to work in different regions of Florida. And I did that purposefully because I love campaigns and I love being in spaces where cultures are different. So one of the things that I went out and embarked into was to work in South Florida for years, actually, maybe about 4 or 5 years in Miami. And I encountered a space completely different from my hometown, which is Kissimmee, Florida. Doing so, I entered a Republican stronghold and a world where, you know, we had different cultures. I got to lobby in Broward County, in Miami, working for SEIU and my political action committee for Our Future formerly. And one of the greatest things that I saw when I came back to Orlando and Central Florida was a progressive community that I think maybe one day can be as progressive as Broward or somewhere on that level, right? Because when I had left, I remember it was 2015 and things had completely kind of changed. The progressive community had grown. And I saw people that were activists and that grew up in politics, people like Anna Scamani, Rep Smith, Rep Mercado, and to see them not just come from the outside world, they were out there advocating, they were protesting, they were there in the issue advocacy of just issues, and then they ran for office. And I think that's such a beautiful story that Central Florida has to tell, because it's those same people that grew up in politics that later became and went out and became elected officials and ran and were successful. And that type of fostering community is a beautiful one. I feel like because of organizations like Ruthless that went out there and tried to harness talent within the community for women in particular, empowering them and giving them the tools and the necessary education they needed to know what it is to run for office, that also helped. But I am very proud of Central Florida because I see that difference, and you wouldn't have seen it 10 years ago. But we've come a long way, and so have the people that represent us. So it's an honor to be here today with those people. And that's how I compare it and contrast it when I see other regions of Florida and see how conservative it is. And I think that community, that growing community in Central Florida makes us very unique.
Tessie, can I add something as a person who's lived here since about, 1997 or so? One of the things I think we need in Florida, and I think Central Florida's dealt with it, but when we look at the whole state, we need something almost like the Lincoln Project that's doing sharper attacks on the Republicans. I mean, I just read that Matt Gaetz, who's one of the worst members of Congress ever, is now being investigated for sex with a 17-year-old girl. I mean, really. And when you look at it, what did the governor do today? He had a jazz band as he was signing the bill saying that none of the corporations here would be liable for any COVID deaths if they were negligent. This whole place has let those kind of people kind of escape and look like they're big deals. And I think part of it is because the newspapers aren't as strong as they are in other parts of the country. But I think we've just got to be that strong, and we really need some brainstorming to figure out how we take some of these people on.
That's a great point. And I think during the presidential election, we all saw the great ads that the Lincoln Project were doing. And although we disagree in terms of policy with the Lincoln Project, the common theme was getting Trump out of office. And I think we could certainly benefit from like you said, some sort of similar think tank that has, significant funding that can really take on some of the Looney Tunes and corrupt politicians in Central Florida who make all politicians look bad. So, sorry, I just said Rep Mercado.
You're fine.
Amy.
I actually want to add, you're good. I want to add something really quickly here. And I answer to everything and anything, but Amy is perfect. Clearly that's what I prefer, but you all can call me whatever. I clearly answer to that. One of the things that I would say from this perspective is really not giving up. One fun fact, I've been part of Roots Lifts one way or another since its inception, right? With the prior leadership, with Alex and at the helm, with Ellis at the helm, with things just moving, right? We were just trying to figure it out. And I happened to be one of the initial candidates that went through the training, and the training was actually through Emily's list, right? And Ruth's list was kind of absorbing the concept and some of those processes. That's the most important thing, in my opinion. The fact that you're able to basically create this team, even if we don't win. I didn't win my first election, and really there was no real path for me to win. The part of that was being willing to run, and I tell you that it took a significant amount of time before I decided to actually run. But not only just running, but being involved in things like this, and being willing to train and share my story. And to be quite honest, part of the reasons I ran, and I've said this on several occasions, is the person that was representing me at the time in the state house didn't represent me, didn't live the way I lived, didn't look the way I looked, didn't struggle the way we struggled, right? Culturally, physically, all of the above. And so if you want to be the change, I mean, if you want change, you need to be the change, and you need to figure out where you fit in that. I never really thought about running for office until I ran for office. Like, it wasn't a trajectory for me. It wasn't something that I planned to do. Running for the Orange County Property Appraiser's Office was not part of the original plan. These things all kind of progressed, and you deal with them as they come. But one of the biggest pieces is this sisterhood that you see next to you. I mean, Tasi has been part of my team. Shayla's been part of the team. They're part of the family. My mom is actually, I think, on the call as well. You know, this is all part of the collective. We started from a grassroots, in the moment. This is the action, this is the reason, this is the purpose. The rest of it ended up being more of a happenstance and happy accidents, although they're not real accidents. And we grow, right? And we bring our own perspective to this conversation, how I grew up and the things that I've dealt with both here and in New York, and raising my kids, and all the different moving parts and the social aspects of all of this make me who I am. And I'm willing to share who I am, and work with the people around me in order to make our world a little bit better, or different, or even just enough pause so that people can see that we're not all alike, and that's okay.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Amy. And I see a lot of head nods. So clearly we couldn't agree more. All right. So moving into our next question. So current events. When we look at the terrible legislation that is coming out of Georgia, and now we see this terrible legislation that's proposed in Tallahassee. Apparently no one wants people to be able to get snacks and water in lines when they are voting. So we're clearly witnessing these this terrible voter suppression backlash. And many believe that it is out of fear of powerful white men starting to lose some of that power. So how do you think we as women should respond to this?
I'd actually dig in here for a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The best thing that I say we need to do is not only lean in, but push further and push harder. We're in a spot, and Lucy, I don't envy you in any fashion, and the rest of the team that's working behind the scenes, because this is a census year. We're about to go into redistricting. And part of the problem that you're going to see and face is the more these folks feel that they're losing power, which is true, the worse it's going to be, right? And I really believe that makes it even more dangerous, because part of this process is that they have been very comfortable, and I think CFO Stink can attest to this. They've been very comfortable in choosing their voters all these years, and galvanizing from that aspect. That's not different this year, and actually I probably think maybe worse than it was even 10 years ago, because they have all three branches of government in the state. That you see this language post our the orange man, because I refuse to call him anything else. And you have all these other pieces that have basically empowered these folks to be this hateful. Before, it used to be behind the scenes. Before, they would hide behind the economics, right? It wasn't necessarily upfront racial, but it's always been racial. It's always been cultural. It's always been very intentional. And so what you're seeing now is this veil has been removed and they're just very dangerous. So what I say to everybody else, especially women on this call, is be very aware and be very protective of your space, but also do not allow this to go unchecked. A lot of the things that we've seen and the things that we're hearing, and even with the George Floyd case, you know, people are that were part of that, witnessing this situation, are saying, I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have called sooner. I wish I could. We don't want to be there in another year and say, I wish we would have been able to do more. The more we can lean in, the better we will be, because it's going to be a fight of all fights in the next 18 months, 24 months.
Can I just add something? I'm glad you mentioned the George Floyd issue, because one of the things that's very frustrated me about being in Florida, and one of the things that Tallahassee may have really missed, is all of these snowbird voters. And remember, the police officer that had his knee on his neck was voting in Florida. He was voting in Central Florida, trying to pretend like he was a resident here. And so I think some of the stuff that they've done with the mail-in ballots is kind of funny, because they may really hurt themselves in the long run. And I couldn't be happier about that. But the other thing I always worry about is Tallahassee may as well be in Alaska. There's hardly anyone I know that's even ever been there. It's just the end of the earth. So they could go up there, they're totally isolated. They do whatever they want. Newspapers aren't covering them. TV doesn't cover them. And so I think we have a real challenge to tell people what's going on. I mean, the wonderful thing that Stacey Abrams had was Atlanta was the focus, and that's where the capital was, and that's where the newspapers and the TV were, and they could get it out. One of our problems is I live in Celebration, and I will bet you there's maybe 10 people that even take the newspaper. I mean, everybody's happy they came down here. They used to be in politics somewhere else, but trying to get them excited and stirred up is what I find. I feel like a cheerleader out there all the time, but it's very important that we figure out how to do this.
Okay, well, my feedback on all this is that I think that every woman on this call has a following of some sort, a platform. Some of you have run for office. Some of you are elected officials. If you ran and you lost, people still know you. You spent a lot of days on that campaign. We all have followings, and we cannot talk to each other. We have to always, and I always say these to my colleagues and to my girlfriends and all of that, we have to actually make sure that we have a plan with measurable goals and outcomes that we're going to set for ourselves to try to disseminate that message and call people to action. Maybe that doesn't mean that during a pandemic, we're knocking on doors to talk about what bills are threatening our democracy, but maybe we can make calls. We have to do this because what they're fundamentally doing is taking the tools we have to defend ourselves and to win, to get elected, and even, and many times even to protest. So I think that it's extremely important that we find the person in us that can move others and focus on that, because it's not just about, if we don't do that, it's not about your campaign anymore. It's about your tools to actually even win, right? To get people out on the doors and get people to vote for you. So that's what I think. I think we have to be extremely strategic. We have to figure out plans and figure out how we can move the people around us, because that energy multiplies. And if we can make it quantitative, we will have accomplished something, that we will have tangible goals on the wall that we can point out to that we were able to accomplish. And that's extremely important, because we have to protect the means, the tools we have to get elected, to advocate, to push back. If they take that from us, we're going to have to move from Florida. I mean, what are we going to do? So we need to do this. We need to activate now.
Yeah, Shayla, that's a really great point, that it's an ongoing conversation, right? And that's why I'm so glad that Ruthless, here in an off year, which is, typically quiet, the average voter probably, doesn't care what's going on, that Ruthless is still staying engaged and hosting events like this and hosting fundraisers and posting on social media. It's so important, because it's not just we show up 4 months before Election Day and try to win model, right? In a state that is as competitive as Florida, we need to constantly be campaigning and talking with voters, engaging people who maybe don't care but should care. And so it's an ongoing conversation. So thank you to Ruthless for always working so hard, even in the off years when you deserve a lot of naps and downtime, for doing things like this and spending your Tuesday evenings with us, because it's just so important and it's one of the ways we can take back Florida. So want to shift gears a little bit. Shayla, you touched a little bit on the importance of being engaged as a candidate and growing your network as a candidate. And so there are several women, and I think a man or two on here, who either hold office, have run for office, or are considering running for office. So this is a little bit of a softball Ruthless question, but I think it's very important. Besides attending the candidate training classes that Ruthless provides free of charge, what are some things that potential candidates should prepare for? And do you think there are specific things women should prepare for as candidates?
Am I going first?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. I've mentioned this on the last Ruthless meeting that we had back last fall after the election, when some of the ladies that we had on our call that are part of Ruthless lost their elections. You spent however time that you did promoting who you are and your values. You don't sit on that. You cry for a day, like my father says, and then you get right back up. Right? Because you've already disseminated your name for however long you have, you have raised money and you've invested in your campaign and in a movement. And we cannot succumb to our emotions. I know that our emotions make us passionate women. I'm one of them, but you have to keep going, particularly in that moment, because that's when people remember you the most. And I am approaching it as from a very pragmatic purview. You use that to your advantage and you use that momentum to continue going. I also feel that as women, we're going to be attacked in all ways, that some ways we won't even expect or see coming, because that's just the nature of things. But I want everybody to always dare greatly and to not fear being vulnerable at all, right? Dare greatly and don't be vulnerable. Expect that. And you know what? Even expect to lose if that's the fear. There's no fear in this. You have to be fearless. And I say that from the heart because I've seen it. I know that when you really want to do something for anybody, be it anything, run for office or any other thing that you want in this world, and you put your heart into it, and if it falls, it hurts. But you need to use that momentum and you need to keep going.
Oh, we lost you.
Shayla, we lost your audio. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Shayla, we can't hear you. I'm like, I still see the lips moving. Amy, did you want to chime in?
Because I think I follow where she was going anyway. But part of this is you see this young lady here. We've been trying to recruit her to run for office for all kinds of things. I actually tried to recruit her to run for my seat when I was leaving and going to the Orange County Property Appraiser. Yes, I'm putting that out there. But part of the deal is knowing where you are and where you want to be. And I'm going to give her all that credit and kudos because it's important. At that moment, when I was talking to her and talking to a few other ladies that I thought would be great candidates for my position, for example, part of the deal was you need to know, especially as a woman, especially younger women as well, where you are and where you think you want to be, because it's never a linear space for us, right? I jokingly said it during my oath of office. I mean, it doesn't matter how you get there. I've gone around in circles on several occasions in my life, zigzagging my way forward. But the point is to move forward. And so learning what you think you want to do, right? What position you think you want to run. It may not be the right position, but running is probably part of the process anyway, because you start removing some of that angst and that fear. Running for office isn't easy, but it's worth doing because you do meet the people that you're hearing here, and you do make a difference whether you win or not. You know, I changed my trajectory in 2010 by losing, but because I ran against the Speaker of the House, folks didn't even know who I was. The fact that I ran against the Speaker, then they start asking, who's this Amy Mercado, right? And how dare you, depending on who you were talking to. And, you know, who do you think you are? Well, I'm still me. At that point, I was still a young mom and doing all the things that I needed to do. But the person that was representing me wasn't representing my ideals, my philosophy, my need. And so I changed not only the conversation, but I also changed my own trajectory in the future, not expecting to do so. And the other piece I'll say here for women specifically, we have a tendency, and Ruthless, I think, says this part of their training, we have a tendency to make it even more complicated on ourselves. We want to know everything and be the experts of it all and have all the degrees and all. It's not necessary. You need to be able to run for office and give yourself the space. Women end up being asked at least 7 times, if not more, before they actually decide to run for office. You ask any male counterpart with the same background that you have, if they think they should run for office, or they, you know, you tell them you should run for office, they're like, yeah, you know what, that's a great idea. I think I'm going to run for office. Sight unseen, no other conversation. And we tend to do the behind the scenes stuff. Oh, well, I don't know about my kids. I don't know about my family. I don't know about my job. I don't know about, you know, I've had multiple conversations with many of you here, and I had the same thoughts, right? I had the same concerns. And one of the biggest reasons I didn't run again in 2012 after I lost in 2010 had to do with my family, had to do with the fact that I had to keep my day job. I could not leave my job to run for office. I wasn't going to get paid the amount of money I needed to get paid to deal with the bills that I had. And so that's a real issue. That is true. But don't let that stop you. It may not be a now, but it may be in the future. And so it took me a little longer. It was a few more years later, but I ran in 16 and thankfully was successful. And as I was contemplating this run in this race, it was part of the same conversation. You can ask Tasi how many times I talked to her and telling her how much I hated fundraising, but we had to do it, right? How many times I called and was like, if I have to talk to this person one more time, right? But it's part of the deal, and we went through it. And I became that candidate that if you didn't answer me, I'd call you 10 more times until you finally called me. And then you get that people then realize, oh crap, I need to return this call because she's gonna keep calling. Do it. Be that insistent, because if you're not, no one else will be.
Well, let me add, mine is a little different coming out of Colorado, but I remember Steve Kornacki had me on his show and said he never could understand how I won in 1973. We didn't even have a woman on the school board. We didn't have a woman in the city council. We didn't have any women anyway. And Nixon carried the district. And the way we did it, and we just did this time a little bit in celebration, and I'm happy to say for the first time celebration went blue since I've lived here, even though it was by a small amount. We started by getting anyone who had been involved in the Democratic Party, that was a precinct committee person, that was, you know, that had been around for a long time, and we tried to get them all together, get them on our side. We did picnics, we did, and then we would ask each of them about what should we know about their area, and who could they get together in their area that they thought, you know, really a mover and shaker, and built it that way. I honestly think it broke my heart during this presidential race to see him saying, no, we're not going to go door to door. We violated that in celebration. We went door to door. And when I ran, I went door to door, and we had a list of all the stupid things that the incumbent had done. And it said, so who is he voting for? You know, and we got these impassioned people who were more than willing to go out and take it on, because it became fun. Making it fun is a lot of it too. You know, it sometimes it gets to really grind people down, but if you can find ways to keep people involved and enjoying it, it makes a huge difference, I found.
I'm not on the panel. I'm just going to jump in here and just say, when Phil just ran and we went door to door, people are excited. We had 35% answer the door.
Yes.
And we just hit the issues. We hit the issues, and people were thrilled to talk to somebody during COVID. I'm not on the panel. I'm going to step back now, but I agree with you, Pat.
Yeah, Jennifer, that's a great point. And I had the privilege of canvassing a couple times for Phil as well. And there was a lot of excitement and it was great. But this wasn't a planned question, but Pat, I have to ask you, just, you know, being elected as a woman in the 70s, that's just a completely different world to me, right? It blows my mind. I see how hard Amy had to work to be the first Latina property appraiser in 2020. What would you say was the single biggest obstacle you faced? And I'm sure you have a list of probably 550 things of your biggest obstacles, but I couldn't get off this call without asking that.
Well, I think probably my mouth. And many times and was absolutely sure that was the death knell of the campaign. My favorite was when about the 55th person said to me, "How can you be a congresswoman and a mother?" Now, I was running against a guy who was also a family, you know, and no one ever asked him how he could do that and be a father, but you know, and so I finally said, well, I have a brain, I have a uterus, and I use them both. Well, at 1972, that was quite startling to people. But on the other hand, I really found that kind of humor worked, and I loved debating him. I mean, part of the wonderful thing was I would go debate him anywhere he wanted to debate because he was just sure. He was so much more knowledgeable. He, at that time, was the second most popular person in the state. And he always called me Little Patsy. And I kept saying, excuse me, I think, what do you mean by that? You know, because I was taller than he was. So, I mean, part of the blessing is some of these guys, their ego is so huge. And he did that. The other thing he did, which you'll never see today, which was absolutely wonderful. He had all these junior league women dressed in these little outfits, and they were Mike's girls. And they would follow. It was hysterical. And so, you know, I kept saying, well, maybe I should get some men and dress them in little outfits and send them around and Pat's boys. But no, I mean, you know, and so people thought that was quite funny. So sometimes your blessing is your opponent, you know, because and his votes were pretty awful too. We had them on a card and we hung them on the doors if we didn't meet people. But I'm so glad you said that, Jennifer, because I really think going door to door and talking to people in person and contacting people is so important in this world. And too many people think they can just do it with ads on TV or with social media or whatever. I think people are more starved for contact than they've ever been.
I would like to say something. I'm not on the panel, but I would like to just say that I couldn't agree more with that. Lynn, Moira, who's on this call also, and we are the chair and vice chair of the Seminole Democratic Party. And our first initiative and our only initiative in the beginning, she calls it 4 wheels on the bus, and it's on the point. And the first wheel is engagement. And we are now canvassing. We have created sort of a pyramid, you can call it a pyramid scheme, where we have clusters and boots on the ground, report to someone else, report to a higher up, and then we're on the top. And then we are starting now to have a well-run machine because we're not waiting for 2022. We have to engage. The Republicans engaged. They didn't give a crap about COVID. They engaged and they went out there. And we missed the boat on that one. And so masks on, we are dropping lit, and we are going out now in Seminole County. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Yeah, that's great, Tracy. And thank you. You know, Seminole, we all know, is just so important. It's arguably the most important county in Florida, or at least definitely in Central Florida. So thank you for working on that ground game. You know, we all know on this call that a ground game is how you win an election. So it's very, very important. All right, so we're We have about 5 minutes left with our panelists because I do want to give Susan the opportunity to say a few closing remarks, and then we also want to take a group photo. We'll try to be quick. We'll try to get in 2 final questions. So this is a fun one. Who are your sheroes? What women inspired you when you decided to enter the political world, and or what women inspire you today?
Okay, I'll go first. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
had
now.
audio trouble.
Woohoo.
So the people that inspire me today, and I think will always inspire me, I could tell you elected officials, right? And that would be something that, you know, you'd probably like to hear, but I think it's my mother and my grandmother. And the reasons for it is are basically because they've had to go through I know their struggles intimately. I know I'm my grandma's wildest dream. And I know that my mother and her had very little opportunities. My grandmother had an elementary school education, but she is an artist. And she did that actually as a form of therapy and now she gives classes in Peru. I'm Peruvian, born there. My mother, who I know her struggles intimately. And I admire those women because I've seen how their dynamic as women coming from a different country have been in the United States and here, right? And they touch my heart because I've seen that every single day. But on the political front, I'm inspired by every single woman. I can find women on this call and women that are not on this call that I admire a lot of things about. I just feel like we need to be our own sheroes and create that unique page because we're not all carbon copies in this world, right? And we are unique in our own ways and we bring our own talents. And we should always be enamored by how we can take that to the next level and grab the great things about each and every one of us to create our own version of us. You have to be your own shero and you have to go out there and get it because that's how you become unique, right? And different and somebody else's inspiration. But that's basically it. And on the family front, I do say this, I admire my family a lot because they did the most with opportunities they had. And that puts a fire on me to do the same. And I think it should for every lady here, because every opportunity and every door that opens for you, you best should go through it, particularly if it can have some sort of advantage and serve others in some way. That opportunity that is in front of you is a place of privilege. Because people like my family and their humble beginnings, they weren't even able to do that. They just had to survive every day and get by. So I encourage every single lady here that it has a network, can run for office, has run for office, or is a current elected official to have that fire in them to keep going because there's so many women out there whose own daily struggle is to survive an abusive relationship or to immigrate to a new country, not know the language. There are so many struggles of so many women that they are multifaceted, particularly now during the pandemic. And I know this firsthand because I'm from a district that is suffering right now the most than any other county, I think, in Florida. So, you know, having opportunities are a privilege. Take them and seize them.
Can I just, as the octogenarian on this group, there weren't a lot of sheroes when I was young. So, but let me move it now to where we are now, talking about sheroes. And 2 years ago, my daughter and her family was moving to France. And I'm talking to my granddaughter who is she's in junior high. And she's saying, well, we live in Montana. I've gone to the same school all my life. My French isn't very good. I don't know anybody there. So I said, so how are you going to approach this? And she said, which tells me how important every one of you are. She said, oh, it's easy. I decided to run for class president because I meet a lot of people and I'd have to practice my French. And she won. I mean, that was even more amazing. But I was thinking at my age, maybe these younger age are different. At my age, that would have been the last thing I would have thought of if I was moving at that age to another country and trying to practice the language and trying to meet some friends. I would have been absolutely hesitant to do that in any way, shape, or form. And to her, it was just, well, that makes all the sense in the world. You meet people, you try your language, and then guess what? I won too. So, you know, it's a threefer. So, I mean, I think you're all sheroes too, and we can't forget that for the young girls that are out there. And we really, women really are making a difference. I think Hillary made a tremendous difference for like my granddaughter and seeing all of that. So that's a real positive thing that's different to when I grew up. When I grew up, it was like Amelia Earhart or Mrs. Roosevelt, but you know, there was no one in Congress.
It's like what Lori said, you are the Shiro.
I'll just add, because my experience I think is very similar to Shayla's, and that is, I've said this multiple occasions, and many of you know that the reason why I live in Florida is because of my grandmother. My maternal grandmother is probably the strongest woman I have ever met, with a very limited education. And the fact that she has survived a stage 4 diagnosis for 26 years when her prognosis was 6 months, which is why I live here, is a testament in and of itself. But it's part of that culture and the family piece. So, I mean, I highlight my grandmother, but it was a collective. My mom has been and was just as important and a force to be reckoned with all on her own. And many of you know her. It's what I saw, right? It's what we felt, what I saw, how we grew up. And yeah, my dad's been around and my husband's been around, right? And so we clearly have plenty of men in the family, but the women rule, right? So it was part of the deal. And it was part of our family and the matriarchal feel of our family. Politically, it would be Sonia Sotomayor. I happened to actually go to her inauguration in 2009. And I was a candidate at the time. I can't tell you how that to this day feels like yesterday. And it was amazing. It was amazing for many reasons, clearly, but she grew up in a place where I grew up. She had struggles just as difficult, right? Culturally and educationally, and even in her health, that I could identify with. I knew exactly where she grew up and came from, and look at where she's at. And so I keep her really close. I've only met her the one time, but just knowing, right, that she was one of those people that actually built on that path. If it wasn't for her and some folks like her, like Congressman Schroeder and stuff, that were willing to run the time that they did run, to educate themselves the way they did, as Justice Ginsburg, right? Like, all of these women have pieces for us that we then bank on. And what I tell folks around me, especially women, is not only grab those sisters behind you and bring them to you, right, next to you, but leapfrog them. They need to be ahead of you. You need to make whatever path you can make for yourself, but amplify that so that whoever's coming from behind you can get further than you can. It's not about being balanced. It's about moving forward, especially in this state.
That's wonderful. And in the interest of time, I honestly could spend another hour or two on here asking questions because this has just been such a wonderful conversation. But I also realize that people get hungry and have families and things to do. So I don't want us to go too far over. So I think that was a wonderful question to end on. I just feel so inspired and so glad we got to do this. So I'm going to hand it over to our wonderful chair, Susan. But I think beforehand, we may want to do a group photo. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so who's handling the group photo?
Before Susan takes over, I just want one little comment.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for having me on this call today. Susan, thank you for the invite. I had no idea what to expect, what to prepare for, but I was so inspired by each one of you, knowing that you guys are freaking powerhouses right now. I'm not running for political office. I'm not even interested in running for political office, but to know there are women right here that are fighting for me, that are fighting for my granddaughter, my daughters, that matters. And so I thank each and every one of you for your commitment, for your tenacity, for your love, for making a difference. And that really, really matters. So thank you for having me on here, even though I don't even play one on TV.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you. Actually, let's give everyone a round of applause real quick. Wonderful job, ladies, or women, sorry. I was told that using the term ladies is no longer politically correct. So I'm trying to say women now, but old habits die hard. All right, so Susan, who is taking the photo?
Ooh, I don't know.
Hey, I'm Anna. I'm with Ruth.
Anna is, okay.
I'm happy
Anna
and
is.
happy to take the photo. So
Wonderful.
I guess in 1, 2, 3. I'll take another 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So thank you all so much for being here, and I'll give it to the rest of the team here. But thanks so much, and have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks, Anna.
All right, Susan, the floor is yours.
Okay. Wow, this has been such a fabulous evening. I can't believe the hour is already over. I want to thank all of you for being with us this evening. I want to thank Lucy for her wonderful comments and inspiring us. Pat and Amy and Shayla, you just make us so proud and so inspired that we just are so glad that you are in our community here in Central Florida, and that you were willing to share your thoughts and ideas with us this evening. So thank you so much. And Tassi, you are the best moderator. You really kept us together and kept us moving along and asked great questions. So we want to thank you for stepping up and doing that for us this evening. I'm not sure if she's still here, but I'm really thrilled that Alex Sink, our founder, popped in this evening and was with us and had an opportunity to speak. She certainly is the reason we all got started with this and really got this ball rolling. And I want to thank also my sheroes locally, Lori Walk, Jennifer Anderson, and Deirdre McNabb, because they are the ones who are behind me all the time saying, you can do this, keep going, don't stop. So thank you all. And I just need to say that if you liked what you heard this evening and you want to be part of this, then you got to get with the program and join Ruth's List. I mean, it's really very simple. Become a member, make a donation. We are an amazing sisterhood. And the reason we are so amazing is because we have our candidates' backs, and they know it. When women run from Central Florida, we give them a safe space to craft their messages, to learn how to present, to get that special cheerleading push. Yes, Ruthless Florida gives them training and gives them skills, that we have something special in our region that touches our candidates in a way that, well, my friend Marie Woodson, who is a new representative from South Florida, came to one of our events before the general election, and she said, I don't know what you're doing in Central Florida, but we don't have that in Miami. So we have something really special here, and I am so honored to be able to continue this tradition that Deirdre and Lori and Jennifer have started, and that we connect with all of you. But you know, the only way we can do this, ladies and gentlemen, is if we support one another, not only emotionally and politically, but financially. So the website link is in the chat. It's ruthlessflorida.org. Please become a member and help us build that foundation so that we are successful for 2022. There'll be a new event coming up soon. I'm not sure what the date is. Our board is meeting April 7th, so I will let you all know what that date is. Thank you all again for joining us this evening. What a great conversation.
Thank you, Susan. You're wonderful too.
Thank you,
Appreciate you.
Susan.
Susan.
So good to see everyone. Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
everybody.
Time for that martini.